As a sleep clinician, I like to be really thoughtful about the specific strategies that I apply to my patients and make sure that they're really getting the most out of doing the good work that they're doing. And one of the things I like to be nuanced about is this idea of how do we manage anxious thoughts at night? Because not the same strategy is going to work for every specific type of thought. And actually, one of the things that my supervisor talked to me about is that there are different strategies that you can apply depending on the content of the thoughts that you're having at night to really provide a precise solution to each of these different problems. So in this video, I'm going to talk about four types of content that can happen in insomnia, as well as some of the strategies that you can apply to help quiet the mind a bit to allow sleep to occur. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Parky. I'm a clinical psychologist and behavioral sleep medicine specialist. I've treated hundreds of patients with chronic insomnia using evidence-based strategies, and I'm also the author of The Insomnia Paradox, which is a self-help book to teach you the therapy skills needed to address your own specific sleep problem. Okay, so let's break down some of the different thought content that can happen at night. Number one are worries. So worries are kind of like fears about or concerns about the future. They can be either more productive related worries or hypothetical worries. Productive worries are things that you have to resolve, like appointment you have to set or something you need to schedule, a call that you need to make, something that is sort of near and you kind of have to do it or there's going to be bad consequences. On the other hand, hypothetical worries are things that don't really have like an immediate solution. They're kind of long term, like maybe you're worried about retirement or your financial goals or like general vague worries about your health and what's going to happen. In that context, there might not necessarily be something you have to do in the moment, and there's no like resolution that can happen as a result. And one strategy that can be helpful for both types of worries is something called worry time, where worry time is essentially a circumscribed period of time done in the early evenings typically, where it's nicely removed from the bed in the bedroom, where you say, hey, the next 10 minutes, I'm just gonna write down my worries. If they are more productive worries, you can write down the problem, like I have to set an appointment, and the solution. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm gonna make that call. Hypothetical worries, what you can do is just allow your brain to like brain dump onto the page and say, this is what I'm worried about. Maybe it's about my parents' health. This is what I'm feeling. This is, something that I might be able to do down the line. But, overall, I'm just allowing stream of consciousness to let how I feel down there, down on the page so that at night, your brain doesn't have to do all that processing then. Okay, so number one was these worries, and I think the solution to that are worry time, where we have a circumscribed period of time to do the worry. Number two, I identify these thoughts as everything, everywhere, all at once type thoughts, where you're not worried or thinking about something specific. It's just your brain tends to like take you every direction. Like one moment you're thinking about a movie, other times you're thinking about worries, other times you're thinking about like things you're gonna do in the future. It's just like bunch of random stuff. In this context, your brain is essentially directing you. It's pulling you, basically everywhere. The thoughts are pulling you everywhere. And the strategy that can be really helpful is something called directing your thoughts, where you're specifically and intentionally directing your thoughts towards something that you think would be helpful in controlling your thoughts. So just to give an example of that, for some people, it could be counting down from 1,000 by 7. So 993, 986, 979. So for them, that really helps to direct their thoughts. For some of my patients, one thing that has been helpful for them has been like thinking about new recipes they can engage in, or thinking about, riding their horse or spending time with their family and imagining that. So regardless of what you're doing, you're wanting to pick a topic that really helps you direct your thoughts. So there's a couple of things that you can do to really set yourself up for success with this strategy. Number one is to make sure that you do this early in the night. So instead of like waiting for the crazy flood of thoughts to already be like whirlpooling around you, you want to kill the monster when it is small by engaging and directing your thoughts early on in the sleep process. Number two is to make sure that you're not doing this for the sake of inherently falling asleep. Like you might fall asleep quicker as a result, but what you're really doing is to train your ability, your brain's ability to hold your attention a little bit longer and longer. So the first night you can only do it for 5 minutes, the next night you can do it for 6 or 10, whatever that sort of gradual approach is, to know that the intention is not necessarily putting effort into sleep by using the strategy to fall asleep. It's just a showcase to your brain that you're able to hold your attention towards something and a stimuli that is more either enjoyable or positive, or more at least conducive to sleep. So a third type of thought content are more existentially related thoughts. Like these are the thoughts that kind of just seem to pop up a lot more at night, like thoughts about life and death, the meaning and purpose of life. Like, there's just these big questions that kind of like keep people awake. And one strategy that can be quite helpful for these existential thoughts is mindfulness. So, mindfulness basically changes our relationship with the experience of thoughts in the first place, where instead of kind of like falling into them and saying, okay, I'm having this thought about the meaning of life and I'm just like covered in it, I'm creating separation between me and the thought and saying, hey, like, I'm having these existential thoughts. If you're a visual person, you can even visualize these thoughts as like clouds in the sky floating away so that you don't get too involved in it or you don't fall into it or start following it. It's just a way to create some distance between you and the thought. And the final type of thoughts, which I think are probably the trickiest to deal with, or at least like it's hard to, in 2 minutes in this video, explain how to necessarily deal with all of them, which are, of course, anxious thoughts about sleep. Like people with insomnia are naturally going to have, very anxiety related thoughts about their sleep, including, if I don't get enough hours, I'm not going to be able to function. Tomorrow is going to be horrible. What if I get sick because of this insomnia issue? Like, what if there's something broken in my brain? You can imagine how these types of thoughts really rev up anxiety and make it hard for us to fall asleep. And there's not like a one size fits all when it comes to how do I address all these issues. In some cases, proper education of the sleep science can be helpful to say, hey, like in insomnia, you don't necessarily need 8 hours in order to function. Everyone else has their own sleep need, and we're just kind of figuring out what the right one is for you. So you don't necessarily need 8 hours to be able to function. Number two might be like, even though, yes, things are more effortful, the research suggests that performance tends to remain relatively intact despite perceived increased effort. So people with insomnia can absolutely do things well. It's just everything feels a little bit more effortful. So that can be one way to like drive down some of the anxiety. And obviously with the health related issues that you are seeking support. Like if you're listening to me right now, you're obviously looking for a way to treat your sleep problems to get better. So this can be one pathway to feeling like, okay, like, yeah, this thought may or may not be true, but it's certainly not helpful. And what is helpful is me looking for information online, reading the right books, taking the right courses, seeking the right support in order to get myself out of this insomnia problem. So hopefully this gives you a smattering of different therapy tools to put into your clinical pocket so that you can kind of decide what are the strategies that work best for me. So what am I dealing with and what strategies can I apply into my life that would have an impact on my overall sleep. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe, maybe watch some other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.